Okay, today we're gonna put the Bucket Runneth Over Valentine card together. So what I've done is I've already done everything in the program, but I'm gonna make sure you have the file and you know exactly what to do to put the card together. You're gonna need some adhesive quick dry glue. You're gonna need some ribbon to go with your Valentine card. I've chosen a red because I'm going to be doing a white background card, and I thought the red would look the best. You're going to need your spatula, of course, to peel everything away. I've used some foam tape to kind of raise up the hearts that get attached. And this is my card. I've already printed the inside of the card, which I don't think you can see with the glare there. And I've also embossed it in my spellbinders. So that's already done. And of course I have my ever trusty advanced tape glider. Those are the products that you're going to need to put your card together. You should have already downloaded the Silhouette file. It is all a print and cut. So when you get done printing it, you should have it on a piece of paper like this. Now, one thing, I can give you a little tip here on the Cameo, especially the Cameo 2, which is what machine I have. I've had the portrait for a year now and never had a problem with print and cut. But I am having a little bit of a problem with the print and cut on Cameo 2. I used to despise how much paper it used to take for the register marks because they're bigger. So number one, I used to make them smaller, so it would use less paper, and I would put it in the machine printing no problem. The new Cameo, for some reason I'm having a lot of problem. If I change the size of the register marks, and I do not choose the portrait matte, even though I'm using the Cameo, it doesn't seem to register the marks. And of course your light has to be good. So what I do is I usually put this on the Cameo to cut it out. I use the Cameo matte, but I tell the machine I'm using the portrait matte. For some reason when I do that, it has no problem. It cuts out great. So once you've got it all cut out and it's still on your mat, you should see here, and I hate that we have a glare, but there's not much I can do about it. You should see you have everything cut out, and in fact some of it, like here, the bucket sticks up. Now be very careful when pulling out the bucket because you have those thin pieces. So as you see, I'm taking my spatula and I'm just kind of lifting it up off the mat itself, away from the white cardstock. I've printed out the bucket. I have the bucket all done. I have all of these little tiny hearts. Now sometimes the hearts will come up pretty easy. If you pull it, just pull your bottom up. And actually this is giving me a little trouble here too. There we go. Now we've got the big piece of cardstock. We're just going to pitch that. Now I pull up all my hearts. And these patterns are not, as you can tell, pattern paper. These are actually, every bit of them is from the Cameo Silhouette program. I just filled them with the red and the pink and the black papers that's already in the program because it went nicely with the color scheme. And there we have all the hearts. Now you may or may not use all those hearts, but I do cut them out. Once you start putting this together, it's kind of just where you want it to have a heart and where you don't. Now as you'll notice with the words, here if you can see them, I sure hope you can. No, not very well because there's a terrible glare from the light fixture. But here you will see that I have just got the L at the bottom and the OVE is separate. That doesn't get glued on together because there's no welding with that. I left it so it has some space between the L and the O. And we have a little bit of white stuck in between the M, which I'm going to try and get out here. And there we go. So now we've got everything off our mat. Put your mat to the side with your scrap cardstock. Now we have to start assembly. And we have the words. Now make sure when you go to put this down that your O has plenty of room on the card itself. Try and leave a little border off to the edge here. And then we have our bucket, which is going to go about right in there, and then we'll fit our hearts in our bow. So to start, we want to glue the words on first. Now my suggestion to everyone, my favorite thing to do with words, is if you don't have this done on a self-adhesive cardstock, which you can also do, but that doesn't print as well, I will tell you that. And now we have to scrape this off, because what I found the easiest, you notice I'm using my scraper to get all the pieces of cardstock off my mat. And this is the Cameo light tacky mat. It's not the one that everybody complains about. Now what I do to glue these letters on is I actually turn my letters over and I put them stick them right back on my mat. And they don't have to be exact or anything. But I try and line up where I want this, O-V-E-R, and stick it right back on your mat. And I try and make sure it's stuck pretty good. Then what I do is I take an Elmer's glue stick. It's actually the easiest to apply glue with. If you get a little bit of extra glue on your Cameo mat, no big deal. We could all use extra glue. So I just use my glue stick, and I've got the one that's purple, so I can see where it's hit, where it hasn't hit. And I actually apply quite a bit on there so that the whole back of it looks purple. And I want it to look that way, otherwise I don't think I'll have enough glue to make it stick. There's my glue stick. And I can even turn it over, make sure it's all lined up the way I want it. And what I would suggest is taking your spatula, pulling off your OVER, getting your card, and you know this has to be pretty well lined up. So you've got your OVER and you've got your big one. Now the big one's a little harder to get off the mat, but usually it'll come off pretty well with your spatula, especially if you're using a light tack mat. I would not do the mat trick if it's a fairly new mat, because you will not have a good time pulling it off. Now I want you to visually kind of line this up where you want it. Remember, the Elmer's glue stick is repositionable also, so you can kind of line up where you want everything. And as you can see, I originally put my OVE in the wrong place, so I just picked it up. And there you go. Now, if any of you do vinyl, a good tip with the vinyl is to take, your backing material. I always save some of this, and I put it down on top of my words and then rub it real good. I'll even take my scraper, any kind of scraper you've got, and rub over it. By using this shiny side, you don't get the glue off of the card. It doesn't stick to here. Okay, so there's how our wording is. Now to do our bucket. And I have to get rid of all my scraps here. Now we want to put the bucket on. But if you notice in the original picture, we try and add some dimension to that. So what I will do is take my bucket and I take my foam tape. Now usually the foam tape comes in 1/8 inch thick or 1/4 inch thick. Now for my bucket, I prefer to use a 1/4 inch thick because I want some of the hearts to go behind the bucket. So I take my thicker tape and I cut a chunk off, 1 inch or so, and I put it on the bottom, and I put a smaller piece on the top in the center. So it's right there. And I know you can't see that very well. And I peel that off. And I stick my bucket where I want it positioned on the card. And you're just going to stick it like that so that it's got some room behind it. And the reason you're going to do that is because we want to tuck some of the hearts behind there. Now this is where you use your thinnest, and you don't even have to use your foam. You can glue some in the back and have them tucked right up against the card for your first few. And this is where I use my quick dry glue or my glue stick, whatever you'd like to do, or even your tape runner. And I'll show you, if you use your glue, try not to use too much of it and kind of spread it around with the tip of your glue tip. And then shove it in behind the card. And try and mix it up. If you use your glue stick, again, you would want to do it on your mat. And you'll see your little purple come out. And no form, no rhyme, no reason. Just glue the hearts down. And then you can also, like I said, use your tape runner. Now those 3 that I put on are not on foam dots. They are literally inside the bucket. Now the next one I would do, I'm going to do some foam dots. I want them to be a little bit higher. And I don't use foam dots, as you can see. I do foam by the roll, because I find that it's easier if you need a bigger piece to be able to cut whatever size you need. And now this one will go on top, and I'm taking it and I'm putting it on the other side of the heart. And I'll put this one in the middle. And with the foam, the bucket is higher than the hearts, which I think often, oops, there's too big of a piece, so we're going to cut that foam tape in half. And I'm just going to put this one here. Grab my little piece of tape that was too big and use it on my next heart. And put that one. I'm just altering them however I feel I need to. Now remember, you're going to want to either have one of the black or one of the pink hearts left to put at the bottom of the bucket here. Okay, we have another one here. And like I said, you don't have to use all the hearts if you don't want to. You can also pick up the handle ever so slightly and put a few hearts behind the top of the handle, which is what I'm going to do with this one. See, I like that it gives it the dimension there. See if I can move that around. Yeah. It gives you the dimension and it's got some thickness to it. And as you can see, I have 3 hearts left that I probably will not use. Of course, you can always put them on the inside of your card, and I'll show you that idea in a minute. Now, for your thicker heart, because the bucket is thick, I would advise you use your thicker dots. If you've used all one size of dots, thickness, don't worry about it. But if this heart is done with a small foam and this is done, and the bucket's done with the large, it's not going to lay properly. Okay, so there. Now I've got my foam. That also holds the bucket in place so that it doesn't, oh, you don't need to see that, so that it doesn't jump off the card per se. So then we've got that. Now, because I said I've got some extra hearts, I think I'm just going to take 2 of these extra hearts and put some glue on the back side. And I'll put them down here in the very corner. I actually have 3, but I think I'm only going to use 2. And I just glued these inside. Okay, that's all set. Now what we're going to do is, of course, close the glue. I never close the glue, so my glue dries out awfully fast. Now let's do a short ribbon. Now this is just a simple bow, nothing massive, nothing overpowering, just nice little bow. Any kind of ribbon, moire, this happens to be the ombre ribbon, and just kind of do this with it, make a nice little bow, tie it up, give it some style, just to decorate it. If you make too big of a bow and you go to mail the card, you're going to have an issue. So try and keep your bows at a pretty good size and not as thick. Okay, there's our bow. Now what you want to do, of course, is do your tails. I do not do long tails on my bows. I think when you take the long tails and put them on, then you might as well hide the majority of your card. And there's my bow. And I always use foam on the back of my bow, whether it be thin or thick, because bows are incredibly difficult to stick. Okay, and then just attach your bow wherever you'd like to put it on your card. Now, I sometimes will even attach my tails if I don't want my tails flipping up and moving around. And in order to do that, I will use my tape runner. It's clear, I don't need much. And I can just hook. And actually, I'm not going to do the other side. Okay, so that should give you a chance to see how nice it looks. And there's a perfect Valentine's card. So I hope you enjoyed that today.